Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. Wherever you are in the world and whatever time it is as you tune in, Wominja Car, welcome. How exciting! Now, I don't necessarily expect you to notice because, as it turns out, the location of my desk, the location of the bookshelf, and the location of the painting are all very similar. But actually, I've moved office. So many of us work from home, right? And you know how there's sometimes that thing where you're like your house, your home life and your work life is blending a little too much. And then you're thinking to yourself, especially when your 4-year-old is becoming more and more adventurous and less obedient and just starts walking into your office at random times. And you're thinking, maybe this would all work a little better if I was slightly further away. So my old office is 120 meters that way, maybe a bit more, maybe 150. And I bought like a portable building and stuck it here. And today is the very first day, and this is the very first webcast. So thank you so much for coming along. It looks nice, don't you think? I'm feeling quite, prepped and pro, which is good. Exciting times indeed. Lovely to see you all. So why are we here? We're here because I think that there's an opportunity to make money meaningfully and freedomfully. I reckon we want to work 1,000 hours a year or less at an average of $500 a year or more. And you could do that in any environment, but why not do it with 2 butlers at once? Mark and Mary, the super team. You're even like next to each other on my little Zoom Brady Bunch thing here, so that is auspicious. Woohoo! How are you guys?
Good, thank you. Good call. Good to be here.
Excellent.
Very well indeed. Thank you, Carl. Good morning, Mary.
Morning, Mark.
Anything else on the Butler family agenda that we need to cover before we move on?
Did you get milk, Mary?
This is why people think we're married.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Siblings.
Well,
did you feed the cat?
Have you noticed that people, like, this is not a blanket rule, but have you noticed that people often marry someone who looks kind of like them? Like, my brother-in-law, whom I live with, right, his partner looks absolutely like this. So doesn't look like my wife, but she does look like their other sister. And in photos, sometimes you can't honestly tell them apart. So I don't know. Maybe that is another reason why people mix you up. Who knows? All right. I think my internet just went slightly weird. I wonder if I can. It did. Yes. Thanks, Mags. Mags, you had a look on your face like, oh, Colin's internet. It's gone slightly weird. Anyway, so we're here to talk about how to work less, make more. You checked your internet first. Right as you were checking yours, Mags, mine said your internet connection is unstable. I worry that it's managed to go through Wi-Fi rather than this precious cable. So if you look here, I've got this other view. I've got this cable here. This cable goes directly to my Starlink, 150 meters that way. So it shouldn't be unstable, but I don't know. I'm worried maybe it's connected by Wi-Fi, but I have to have my Wi-Fi on to make the camera work. And it's a bit. Anyway, we'll see how we go. If the internet turns totally to shit and I'm not coming through loud and clear, can you all just like scream in the chat box and let me know? Because it's obviously better to turn that camera off and at least you'd be able to hear me. Wonderful. So, are we ready to dive in? Are we ready to dive in? Great. So what I'm going to do today is expand upon an idea that I shared on LinkedIn the other day, and it speaks to the scales of time, the orders of magnitude of time that I find really useful to think about in your practice. So if any of you either read that post or were at, I think it was last week or the week before's webcast, I've mentioned these scales of time before. But just in case you can't remember, oh, that's the wrong button. This might be the right button. There we go. These are the 4 scales of time that I think it's useful to think about. And actually, it was literally just last night that I was really thinking there is one more that deserves to be on here, which is one day. Because obviously, it doesn't matter how much you kind of think about the future or recall the past. The only time you can ever change the present is right now. So many of you will have read The Power of Now by, what's his face? What's his name again? Eckhart Tolle. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Anna. That was very well communicated by lip reading, by the way. It's very, very crisp. The only way that you can ever change the world is right now. And so I definitely think it is worth considering what we need to do on the one day. But 10,000 days is about, I've just got to unplug this. Sorry, a few little teething issues being on my first day here in the new office. 10,000 hours, 10,000 days is about 27 years. And so I would like to think that that is about as big as a chunk of time as we need to get you somewhere near the sunset of your life. I have no idea how long we're all going to live. The way medical health science is advancing, maybe a really long time, I'm not sure, but I feel like 30 years is probably enough for us to kind of think about as most of the rest of our lives, right? Probably most of the rest of our productive life, certainly. And so what I think is important to think about over the course of 27 years, 30 years, is your vision for your life. Yeah, it's like, what do you actually want your life to have? I think when we think on scales of 30 years, it's on those scales that we realize that money's not that important. Like if you imagine yourself at the very sunset of your life and you're looking back on how you spent your time and you're thinking about what you'll be proud of and what you'll be grateful for and all that kind of stuff. For a lot of us, it'll be things like family or experiences or knowledge or whatever that will truly be important. And I think that our work lives are really important in this sense, but it won't be directly the money that you made that you'll be proud of or grateful for. It'll be the impact that you had or the legacy that you've left or the people who you've influenced or the experiences that you've shared. And so I really like 10,000 days as a chunk of time because it helps us calibrate around what's truly important. So at 10,000 days, I like to look at your vision or purpose. 1,000 days is about 3 years. And this is an extremely useful period of time for us to be thinking about essentially your plan for your business, your strategy for what you want to execute. And in particular, what I think is key at that kind of 3-year horizon is what do you want your profile to be in 3 years' time? How do you want to be known? For what do you want to be known? By whom do you want to be known? Because your profile over that period of time is going to have by far the biggest influence over what you're able to achieve commercially. If you could trade profiles with Adam Grant, for example, or Brené Brown, or someone, you know, who's at that kind of superstar level, if you could just wake up tomorrow and have their level of notoriety and fame and everything else, not necessarily in their field, maybe still in your field, but if you could trade profiles with that person, don't you reckon that would have a sudden and enormous influence over what you were capable of doing? That would have an absolutely incredible impact on what you're able to achieve over the next 30 years, the next 10,000 days. Because I think your profile is key to everything that you do. I was reading a post the other day by someone kind of like me who helps people growing a small business or a solo business with, you know, how to be successful. I like to read around and make sure I'm on the forefront. And they were talking about how the number one thing you need is a USP, a unique selling proposition. And I was like, bullshit. If there were 2 solo pros, right, one of whom had really high profile but a very generic USP, and another one who had the world's most unique USP but like the lowest profile you could imagine, who's going to have the bigger impact? Like, it's obviously going to be the person with the high profile, even if they're totally generic. So I really want to think about and strategize and execute on creating the profile that you want to have over the next 1,000 days. I think that's going to have the biggest possible influence on your success. When we come back to 100 days, this is a perfect period of time. 100 days is about a third of a year. When I talk about working 1,000 hours a year, you can do that however you want. And of course, you can ignore it. You can work 2,000 hours a year if you want to. I just like 1,000 hours. And for myself, 1,000 hours, one nice way to make mathematics work is about 20 hours a week with 2 whole months off. So if you do the maths and you do about 20 hours a week, so roughly a part-time job, and then you take 2 whole months off a year, that works out to close enough to 1,000 hours. Okay, it's on that order of magnitude. And what that does, if you take 2 months off, is it leaves 3 stretches of 100 days in a year. There's 3 groups of 100 days, and then you just take 2 months where you go bugger off and do nothing. And what I especially like about that is it means if you make 10,000 bucks a month, but you take 2 months off, then that's 100 grand a year, nice round number. Right? And I want you to make 500 grand a year, so it's simple. I want you to make 50 grand a month and take 2 months off. Nice. You can play with those numbers however you like. I actually don't work quite 20 hours a week generally. 20 would be a busy week for me. But I have 3 kids under 4 years old, so I've got a lot to do right now. If you want to work 25 or 30 hours a week, that's totally fine. The reason I kind of chose a number like that is because I think most people who are working are actually just draining their life energy for no benefit whatsoever, and I don't want that for you. When you're working, I want you to be the most productive person in your suburb. And then when you're not working, I want you to be the calmest or happiest, the most well person in your suburb. So that's the idea. So 100 days is a great period of time over which to execute projects. Now, my friend Peter Cook wrote a book with the worst title in the world. It's called The New Rules of Management. I honestly don't think it has anything to do with management, and this is one of the things where going through a book publisher can really ruin it. This book is actually about implementation, and when Pete first wrote it, it was called Implement. And I would much rather be holding up a book that said Implement on the front, but Wiley was like, oh, well, people are talking about management at the moment. Let's call your book about management. Anyway, the entire thesis of this book is how to implement projects that matter. And I think 100 days is the perfect scale of time for you to be thinking about projects, okay? Which means you've got 3 stretches per year to implement things that are going to make a big difference or might, okay? Which is why I love 100 days. When we come down to 10 days, this is like a week or 2, yeah? Orders of magnitude. 10 days is about a week or 2. And over this period of time, I think our focus needs to be productivity. Can you get shit done? You've got 10 sets of 10-ish days to get you to a 100-day project. Yeah, it might be 7 sets of 2 weeks or 13 sets of 1 week, or no, what is it, 14 sets of 1 week. In a 10-day span, I reckon we want to be talking and thinking about productivity and ensuring that in that kind of smaller chunk of time, we are capable of making stuff happen. And one day, I'm not quite sure yet. I'll come back to you with the magic on that. It literally came to me last night that I shouldn't be ignoring one day, but I don't know what it is yet. Exactly, I have a sense, but we'll come back to it. So, I reckon doing this properly, the exercise that I'm going to kind of give you a taster of today, I reckon doing this properly could take a whole day or even 2. But what I want to do is give you just a little introduction to it, all right? It's inspired by a habit that Peter Cook instilled in me about 15 years ago, where you start at the longest time period. Like if you want to work out what you should do today, a great strategy for doing that is taking the longest time period imaginable. So going to the sunset of your life and imagining where you want to be by then, and then working your way in increments backwards until you get to today. So that whatever you're going to do today, which is the only time in existence that you can change the world, feeds into creating what you actually want over the long term, okay? So what I want to do today is get you to think about and write a few things down at each of these 5 timescales, from 10,000 days down to today. And what we're hopefully going to do is uncover something that might change how you're going to behave, that might change what you're going to do. Does that make sense? Are you in? Are you ready to rock and roll? Excellent. So let's start with 10,000 days. Can you just get a fresh piece of paper? And we should give this a name. This is an auspicious moment. What if we name it right now and this is what it becomes called forever into the future? The Solo Pro projection exercise. That could be what it's called. Projection. You all know that I'm obsessed with pro. Oh, I know. Mags, how dare you? She scoffed. Did you see that, people? She scoffed at me. Cole. That's right, Mags. I love you. All right. What I want you to do is put 10,000 days at the top of your. You did roll your eyes. Put 10,000 days at the top of your sheet of paper. So this is 10,000 days is 27 and a bit years, but let's call it 30 years, or another way, the sunset of your life. I love that as a metaphor. I literally imagine myself in my home at sunset, like sitting outside, looking over the lake, etc. Right? So I want you to imagine yourself at the sunset of your life, and I just want you to take 2 minutes to write down where you are, who you're with, what you've done, what you're grateful for. Yeah, have a little think. You got a couple of minutes.
I can't go away with you on a rock climbing weekend. What if something's on TV and it's never shown again? It's just as well I'm not invited. I'm afraid of heights. I lied about being the outdoor type. I never learned to swim, can't grow a beard or even fight. I lied about being the outdoor type. Oh, feels like autumn's back again so soon. I see my father turning gray in her silver moon. Don't remember when he was a young man anymore. Well, that's just too long ago. And suddenly I'll be asking you if you love me all the time, even when the diamond loses its shine. Whoa, whoa, yeah. Oh, the heaviness of loss and the weightlessness of a baby boy. The despair and the imminent joy. You know, temptation only shows you one side of its face. Gotta make sure you see the other before you join the rat race. Don't know why I'm
Give me a little yep in the chat box when you're done, if appropriate.
the flow, and that's what the flow wants to do. So I don't need to tell you, do I, my girl, that you are sunshine, you're everything good in the world. Well, you know I'm thinking about myself less and less, only holler if it's SOS. Taking bigger steps to get to you. Happy to sit here and watch you and I grow and bathe in the sweet autumn flow. You know, temptation only shows you one side of its face. Gotta make sure you see the other before you join the offer to take care of you, but I've learned to go with the flow, and that's what the flow wants to do.
All right. I said I was only going to give you 2 minutes, and I did say that we weren't going to be able to give this exercise full justice today, but I wanted to kind of run through it and give you a taster or a teaser. And I'd love to hear what a few of you have in your vision. So if you're willing to share a little chunk of it, you don't have to share everything you've written, but if there's a couple of little highlights that you wouldn't mind sharing, please, by all means, just unmute yourself and let us know, or give us a little wave and I'll call you out. What's something that's in your vision that makes you excited or makes you happy? What do you got? Yes, Mary.
Happy to share. So in that time I'll be 80, so hopefully not still working.
Yeah.
Hopefully long finished at that stage. We've recently moved home and done a big renovation, so I hope I'm still here in this home up the coast, really enjoying it. Financially comfortable. I think that's when we know women over 50 is kind of the big scary kind of space. So I think just being really comfortable, hopefully on top of my super. I think having some, good friends around, family and friends, still being active and in good health. I think that's important, both physically and still having an active mind as well. And
Totally.
Grateful for a very happy life and happy marriage. Yeah.
Wonderful. Sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
Hey, Kev, I'd love to talk to you because I'm intrigued, but are you a skilled juggler, Kev? It appears by your background that you might be able to throw things in the air and catch them again. Is that the truth?
You're looking at the screen.
Yeah, I'm seeing them and thinking you might know how to throw things in the air and catch them again. Is that a thing?
Well, it's not hard, you see. I mean, I can
Easy peasy. Kev, what's in your vision? Any highlights that make you really happy or excited?
look, it's something actually that I do on a fairly regular basis, because what I do is I have a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
Basically that I sort of like look at and change and mold and manipulate on almost like a weekly basis.
I love it.
Because things constantly change, and I see things and I hear things and I hear I watch and I read and I go, you know what? That's what I want.
Yeah.
Because it was somebody, I can't remember who it was, but somebody it'll come to me. It was anyway, they said that when they die, they want to die with at least 100 or 200 things still on their to-do list.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
On what they want to do. So that's what I'm doing. I mean, I need to live another, ideally I need to live another 2 or 3 lifetimes before
yeah, totally.
everything that I want to achieve, and the income that I want just keeps on sort of going up, from the earning to it being passive to changing. So it's a continual work in progress.
Love that. And I think it's one of those things where, because I started doing an exercise like this at the behest of Peter Cook, and I found that if I did it on an annual basis and kept it up somewhere visual, then I got to check in with it, and it's absolutely okay for your vision to change and mold and drift or evolve over time. But that if it is something we constantly keep in mind, then we're able to continually be working on it on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, totally.
For me on a weekly basis, it's what it just does. It just helps with keeping motivated. Because if it's just us, and sometimes the spiral down can be fairly rapid. So
yeah,
rereading while you're doing it and adding to it just keeps you up there.
Yeah, totally. Thank you, Kev. Anyone got something on their vision that makes you excited or optimistic, or I'd love to hear something. So I'll share one of mine if you like. My goal is to change one piece of Australian culture. So I want to have a positive influence on one piece of Australian culture. And at the moment, my idea is I want to change our attitudes around gambling, and I want to turn Melbourne Cup Day into a day where we all give to charity rather than to bookies. And if I could change that about Australian culture, that would make me really, really happy. So that's something, you know, that's an example of the kind of thing that I think can live on your visions to help inspire you. Anyone got anything like that? Something that you want to do? Anything you want to achieve? Yeah, Mark, Kev.
The program that I do, or the series that I do, is Catch Yourself Thinking.
Yeah, Catch Yourself Thinking. I love that. That's cool.
So the series that I have within that 10,000, before the sunset, is to be in the vernacular of business for learning and development, for changing people's lives from the point of view of increasing self-awareness.
Perfect.
Which then relates back into their personal life. So yeah, Catch Yourself Thinking, to be in the vernacular of business.
Love it. That's awesome, Kev. And Anna, I love that workplaces where people are better off having worked there rather than workplaces that are better off because the person worked there. Yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
Well, also, I'll just add to that, Cole, it's more like a lot of people leave workplaces because they're burnt out, from the work. So I'd rather be that you're better off having worked there because you don't leave because you're burnt out.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Working there actually contributes to your well-being rather than detracts from it. Yeah, 100%. That's awesome. All right. So we've talked about this idea of 10,000 days. What I want you to do now is come down to 1,000 days. So 1,000 days, 3 years. Our focus here is profile. And what I would like you to do, just really quickly as a summary, right, is just what and who. What, in 3 years' time, would you love to be known for? Would you love to be famous for? Would you love your name to be raised every time this conversation came up? And by whom would you love for that association to be made? So what do you want to be known for, and who do you want to be known by? Let's just take a minute and scribble down what comes to mind. All right, so I didn't give it too long, but can we quickly bounce around the room? Because I don't reckon this takes too long. What do you want to be known for, and who do you want to be known by? And I get that for some of you, especially if you're starting out, this might be a hypothesis. Right? It could be like an idea. You're not necessarily completely firm on it. That's totally fine. What we're going to do is come down to 100 days to launch projects to see if we can make a reality or not. And if we can't, then we'll adjust. That's the whole point of this exercise. What do you want to be known for? Who do you want to be known by? Let's go. Just unmute yourself and let me know. Yoga.
Yep. I'm still very much in the future-proofing arena. I really want to be known as the future-proofing expert, but something that Kev just said caught my attention, catch yourself thinking. And currently I'm really focused on, this might become my 100 days, which you've already seen on LinkedIn maybe, is catch yourself feeling. People are so emotionally not so literate, and I'm trying to change that.
Yeah, right. Nice. Love it, Yoga. And who would you like to be known for? Like, you'd want to be known for that among who? Who's like the people that you'd love to be famous among?
Currently, actually, leaders and C-suite, people, leaders aiming for the C-suite, really.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Yoga. What do you want to be famous for, and among who? Yeah, Sarah.
It's still fairly broad, but I think helping people successfully take risk, and then myself continuing to successfully take risk with my adventures and expeditions.
Yeah, totally. So you want to absolutely live your expertise in a very literal way. And who do you want to be known as the successful risk-taking chick with?
That I don't know. That's got big question marks next to it.
Yeah, right. So that's definitely something to explore.
Yeah.
One of the things that we know is that it's very hard to be broadly famous. And funnily enough, if you think about it, it would also suck. So I once saw a video of Jim Carrey, who is about as broadly famous as it's possible to be. And he was visiting the hillside from which you can look across to see Christ the Redeemer above, is that Rio de Janeiro or Brasilia? I can't remember. Anyway, Rio, I think. And so he's there, and he's got his phone out, and he's taking a selfie of himself with Christ the Redeemer, and he goes, "Oh, look at this, I'm at Christ the Redeemer." And then he slowly starts to turn around to show the rest of the crowd who are at this same tourist spot. And every single person has their camera out, their phone out. But of course, they're not filming themselves, and they're not filming Christ the Redeemer. They're filming Jim Carrey. He is surrounded by 5,000 people, all of whom are just pointing a camera at him. And he goes, "Just so you know, my life kind of sucks." Because being broadly famous, it's shit. Like, you wouldn't want to do it. However, being locally famous is pretty much the best thing ever. So I've been locally famous in 3 different communities. I've been locally famous in go-kart racing many years ago. I've been locally famous in ultimate frisbee presently, and I've been locally famous among solopreneurs, right? And being locally famous is the best, because when you're in that community, you get all this affirmation and all this feedback and response, and it feels wonderful. But at the end of the day, you can go home and walk to the supermarket and nobody stops you. And being locally famous among the right group of people can be a ticket to earning that $500,000 a year or more. So, right? Yeah, being locally professionally famous. I actually saw a thing. Do you know Stephen Dubner and Stephen Levitt, the guys that wrote Freakonomics? Ever heard of the book Freakonomics? It's quite a popular thing. And they did an Ask Me Anything on Reddit once, and someone asked them, what's the key to happiness? And they said, to be locally famous is one of the highest predictors of someone's happiness. If there's a community that massively values you and what you offer, that community gives you all the affirmation and encouragement that you need to make you famous across your entire life, which I find really interesting and certainly true in my own case. Having been locally famous in these little groups has, I think, definitely bolstered my general sense of well-being and confidence and everything else. Can we hear another one? Anna, what do you want to be known for? Who do you want to be known by?
Yeah, I said that I want to be known by the professional services industry as someone that gets better results.
Yeah, nice. Excellent. And you've got a book on the way out, which should help do exactly that. I understand very well.
So.
Good job. Good job.
Thank you.
Cool. I think this 3-year window, this 3-year time period should be, like Kev talked before about having his plan up on the wall and constantly looking at it, adjusting it, changing it, and making sure that it was driving him in the right direction. I reckon the 3-year window is the time period to be thinking about in terms of making sure that the work you're doing today is building towards the thing you're trying to create. The 30-year time period, of course, is your North Star, if you like. but it's not particularly tangible or useful in many ways. A 3-year time period, I think, is an extremely practical time period to be kind of keeping your focus on and driving towards. And so I find it really useful to have some kind of summary, some kind of reminder of your 3-year vision for yourself, your 3-year goals for yourself, placed somewhere prominently to remind yourself that that's what you're building. I love the aphorism, there are 2 guys sitting on the ground with hammers and they're smashing rocks. And one of them looks really unhappy and one of them looks absolutely stoked. And a person walks up and says, "What are you guys doing?" And the unhappy one looks up and says, "I'm breaking rocks." And the other one says, "I'm building a cathedral." 3 years is your cathedral, I reckon. Right? 3 years is the thing that you're building of significance that can only be done over a reasonable period of time and with the accumulation of a lot of effort. Yeah, I love that too, Anna, totally. And I think it's the right time scale to be kind of building towards at all time. All right, so we've got 10,000 days, 1,000 days. Let's zoom right in now to 100 days. And given that we're like halfway through October, this is maybe slightly an odd time to be doing it because you could be thinking about the 100 days between now and Christmas-ish, right? Or maybe if you've already got that 100 days kind of pretty set in your mind, what might be more useful right now is to start imagining your first 100 days out of Christmas. Might be I find Christmas or the holiday period in general to be kind of a line that appears in every year and there's a before and an after. Obviously that's completely arbitrary. But as we talk about this, you may want to think about, either what can I milk out of the last period of this year, or alternative, you may want to think about what can I get started going next year. So 100 days is all about projects. So this is meaningful, constructive things that we can execute and release to the world within 100 days. I think if your projects take more than 100 days to build value, it's very difficult to maintain the rage. And in fact, what I'm generally encouraging you to do is to even go one level smaller than that and have your project spit value out at minimum, once every 10 days. So even if you're doing a 100-day thing, so Anna, for example, is in the throes of writing a book, which is going to take her 100 days or possibly more. And I reckon it's going to be a lot easier for her to get to the finish line if every 10 days that book creates something valuable that she can use, right? So this is things like social media materials to stick out on LinkedIn, or a white paper comes out of the first part of it that she can send to the HR managers at various professional services firms or whatever. If we can make our projects spit out value as often as possible, then we're going to be, generally speaking, a lot more successful because the incentive is there to keep going. And I think you should always think of yourself as just a system responding to incentives. If ever you're not responding, you can just ask yourself where your incentives are. So what I'd like you to do is to take a couple of minutes to write down just some ideas for projects that you could do. And I just want to give you a couple of ideas of ways you could think about it, all right? So projects are the 100-day focus, and the 1,000-day focus was profile, and the 10-day focus is productivity. And I think that there are 2 types of projects you can think about, which is projects designed to raise your profile or build your profile. And there are projects that can be designed to improve your productivity. So the first 2 types of projects are profile projects or productivity projects, okay? So a profile project could be, one example is to write a book like Anna's doing. That is very much a profile project in my mind, okay? A productivity project might be something like, I'm gonna hire an assistant because that's going to help me be more productive, or I'm going to implement a new, like the use of a new, whatever it is, something, right? There are loads of different things we can do to improve productivity. And sometimes I think productivity is often influenced on smaller timescales, which is why I like to think of it in 10-day chunks, but I think there are projects that can take longer, okay? There are 3 other types of projects that I think can be really helpful to think about. And I reckon once every 100 days, you want to be asking yourself, are there 3 projects across these 5 types that I could implement that are going to have a dramatic influence on the production of my business? So the other 3 are, this one I think I should actually put at the top. let's change the order. Stick you up there. These two are going to come down the bottom. We'll fit 2 more in the middle. The first type of project is a profit project. So this can be anything designed to increase the amount of profit in your business. It can be a reorganization of the products that you offer. It can be a new service that you've got an idea for. Anything designed to increase the amount of profit in your business, I think you should execute as a project. That means that you've got 100 days to design it and implement it, and to get a really clear sense of if it's working or not. Okay? So we have profit projects. I reckon you might have projects around people. So the idea of hiring an assistant would be a people project, I reckon, and obviously linked to productivity. People can be within your business. I'm very much a solopreneur, and so I have only one assistant, and the most successful version of my business I could imagine at most would have 2 other people in it, but probably only one. But there are also projects around people that can be external to your business. So you might have a project around increasing the size of your network, around partnering up with other people, setting up joint ventures, all that kind of stuff. Something that involves other people and they have their own agenda and their own vision and their own intentions. And so it can be a very useful project to think about how we're going to use other people in our business to succeed. And the last one is platform projects. So there are loads and loads and loads of platforms in our lives. It can be CRM platforms, it can be email distribution platforms, it can be social media platforms. I actually think the most important platform in your life and your business is your body, right? And so if you need to do something to increase your own health and well-being, then I think of that as a platform project. Your body is the most important platform that your solo business is built upon. Imagine if we took you out of your business. Would it generate any value at all? Probably not. So we've got profit, people, platform, profile, and productivity. What I want you to do now is see if you can ideate, 3 or maybe 10 projects inspired by those 5 categories that can have a materially positive impact on your business. And the only rule is that one of them has to be profit. Okay? One of them has to be profit. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I want you to think of as many as you can, and then at the end, what I want you to do is narrow it down to 3. Here we go. There's always that awkward thing when you're running a random playlist and the song runs out after not quite enough time. And you have to wonder to yourself, oh, should I let the next 27 seconds of the next song go, or should I just kind of stop it here and hope for the best? Anyway, we're going with the latter. I did say I don't think we're going to have enough time to do this, and I really do think that properly ideating and sorting projects is something that you would probably spend 90 minutes doing, and we're just smashing it out here in 3. But all the same, I'm interested, did any potentially useful ideas spring to mind in the time that we have had? So a couple of nods coming up, so that's exciting. So Mary and Anna, you're both nodding, and Kev, you seem to be nodding, and if we can just get Yoga and Sarah to be nodding even slightly, then that would mean that we were like, yeah, there we go. All right, you don't have to share all of them, but I'd love to hear a few potential project ideas. And what I love about this is you're not committing to it. You're just, an opportunity to say it out loud sometimes gives you an opportunity to get a slightly better assessment of it. So what's a project that sprung to mind that you might be able to tackle, which in 100 days could generate some real value? Mary, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. There was an activity we did one time around, what if your program was $50? What if your potential client had $500,000?
Yeah.
Your offerings look like, and how would they be different? And I think I tend to go in with, oh no, but it's coaching and workshops, and this is my program. And even though there's kind of what the client want, that profit thing is really helpful to think about. What are some of the other offers?
Yeah.
And rather than waiting for the client to suggest them, that I actually go in with the whole range in my head that I could think differently about it. So that profit one, I don't give it that enough attention.
Nice. What I love too is if you get creative around the ways that you can work with people and you find an idea that truly excites you. So I'm sure you've all seen it. Hopefully you've been this person at some point. You've been talking with a potential client and you're genuinely excited about what you might be able to create together. There's this fizz of possibility. And do you get how energizing it is for the client to be in that situation? To have this smart and insightful and high profile person come into their business and say, oh my goodness, I've got an idea. What if we did this and this and this and this? And imagine if we did, and you're there with that kind of energy, that can really fire them up. And rather than just being like, oh, these are the things that I offer, which do you want? But you instead come with this like bit of energy and creativity. Totally, I think amazing stuff can happen. So, Mary, have you got anything specifically that's fizzing to the surface? Like, have you got one you're like, oh, I could go and do that, or I could offer this? Is there anything specifically coming to mind?
Yeah, I've got a whole new program, and it's really about me partnering with financial advisors to work with owners who are selling their business. And then I'm thinking maybe I just look at offering directly to the owners themselves, even though they're the kind of the ultimate users. Or maybe it might be running workshops for the advisors to kind of say, here's how you can do it, and then just get me in to do it anyway. But yeah, just looking at it a little bit differently, rather than it's like, no, I have to be the coach.
Yeah.
Thinking about that a little bit differently. So yeah, some good ideas what that might look like.
Wonderful. Anna, you were nodding like an idea had come to your mind. Got any projects that might start spitting out value?
Yeah, definitely. There's, thinking about, off the back of the book, how I really position keynotes at sales conferences.
Yep.
So making sure that I can get on stages to then leverage the book.
Yeah.
I've got things like, how do you then actually be really smart in setting up social media and newsletter campaigns? So you're working smarter, not harder, and just using content from the book to roll that out over the next 12 months.
Yep, totally.
And things like, do I need to reposition my website and my LinkedIn, hire a VA who then hopefully can do a LinkedIn strategy to reach out for new leads. So there was a whole lot sort of coming through, and I sort of started to then get very,
Yeah, totally. And like one of the things about projects is, number one, some of them are always destined to fail. And like one of the most important things that Pete ever taught me about projects was that you have to launch them knowing that they won't all work. And that if we only launch projects that we're certain will work, we're almost certainly limiting ourselves in terms of possibility. And so there is a degree of like, we have to have a degree of willingness to step into the unknown a bit, I think, Anna, is one thing. But the other thing is there will always be more possible projects in the world than you could ever possibly execute. And so this phase of it, where we're like really thinking about them, it's really critical to work out how much value are they likely to produce? How likely are they like what is their likelihood of success? Are the odds good? Am I rolling a good dice here? And one of the other ones I think is, will this project energize me to continue? So sometimes people say, oh, you know, I've got this thing and when it's finished, it'll be great, but the process of creating it sounds like hell to me. And my reaction to those is almost always like, are you even ever going to get there then? Like, can you put up with 99 days of shit? Do you have that much discipline to get yourself there? I don't, is the honest truth. I don't have the discipline to push myself through 99 days of shit. And so the best projects for me to choose are the ones that actually give me some kind of, feed me some energy and feed me some success along the way. Because if it's not doing that, then I don't make it. But definitely, I think we could talk for 5 webcasts about how to think about which projects you should be choosing and how to implement them. But it sounds like you've got a whole host of possibility in your business right now. So that's super exciting. All right, I've got 5 minutes left and I have to spruik an event at the end. So let's do the last one super quickly, okay? 10 days is, I reckon over 10 days, what we want to be thinking about is productivity. Can I actually create in little 1 to 2 week bursts super useful, super valuable things that are contributing towards the execution of my projects, which are delivering my profile over 3 years, which are going to get me to my 30-year dream, right? That's how this all fits together. And you get that if you don't get shit done, well, we're not getting far. So we want to think about productivity. What I'd love for you to do is let's do productivity for the next 10 days, okay? So the next week or 2. And I want you to just quickly go through 3 ways that you could potentially improve your productivity. Number 1 is with an experiment. So can you quickly ideate an experiment by which you could just do something slightly differently and find out, does that make you more productive? So I've got an experiment right outside my window. If I'm allowed to step outside and throw 50 disc golf putts whenever I want to, do I produce more in my new office? That's my experiment. I'm going to test it out. So experiments is 1. The second is accountability. So is there some kind of accountability structure that I could quickly put in place that would help me get what I need to get done over the next week or 2? And the third one is support. Is there some kind of support system I could put in place? You know, could Mark and Mary ring each other every morning, check that one of them got the milk, and then provide encouragement or support, a little bit of accountability to get them through? Like, is there someone else in your life that knows what you're trying to get done? Right. So very quickly, because we've got 3 minutes left and I want you to be able to have time to get off to the rest of your world. Can you come up with either an experiment or a way that you could hold yourself just a little more accountable with love, right? Not with, I don't want you to hit yourself with a stick. I want your accountability to be positively framed. Or is there some way that you could get a little more support? Often the way to get support is to give support. So think about that. And I want it to work over this next week or 2, over the next 10 days. Awesome. So Anna is going to improve her accountability with her calendar. She's working 3 days a week, which means she needs to be super productive. And she's going to block her calendar out. And so you're in a sense, this is like a discipline experiment, is it, Anna? Like, fill in the calendar. Can I hold myself to the calendar? Totally. Excellent. Okay. my great hope for you is that there can be a 10,000 day vision that feeds and provides the inspiration to create a 1,000 day profile, which dictates these 100-day projects, which you execute in 10-day bursts of productivity, and that you wake up every day knowing that you're building a cathedral and inspired by that, by the way that all those pieces fit together collectively and take you to where you want to go. And what I know is that if you get this right, you get to work 1,000 hours a year at an average of $500 an hour or more. And I reckon it's an amazing life, and that's what I want for each of you. So I'm a huge fan of Kevin Kelly. Kevin Kelly was the founder of Wired magazine. He's one of those people who, I'm sure you have them as well. You've got your field of expertise, and there's just someone out there in the world who everything they say feels like something you wanted to think up and say. And you're like, oh, why did they get to be born 40 years before me? Kevin Kelly is one of those people for me. And I thought that I had read everything Kevin Kelly had ever said, but literally this morning over my hot chocolate, I read something from Kevin Kelly that I'd never seen before. And it was a term he coined called Scenius, S-C-E-N-I-U-S, Scenius. And he said, Scenius is like genius, except that it's when genius springs from a scene rather than from genes, right? So you might be a genius because you got a good brain, right? Your genes combine together to make you a very smart person. That's genius. Scenius is when a group of people get together in a place or a space or a way and create a scene together, and that scene reliably produces genius. I love that idea, and that's what I want. Now, Kevin Kelly did go on to say you can't just create Scenius. You can only get out of its way when it's happening, right? But the degree to which it's possible, I want to try to help create Scenius, right? Which is where we all get together and genius emerges. And so I talked a bit about wanting to collect together a group of solo pros and to make a scene where hopefully your genius can truly shine. And I'm very, very, very excited to announce that there's going to be an experiment launched in exactly this way on Friday, the 8th of December this year in Melbourne. Location exactly TBD. But essentially what I'm hoping to do is get 30 to 50 people in a room to set a scene where genius may emerge, and I will attempt to get out of the way and allow it to happen. It's going to cost $250. So if you're coming from interstate, the entry fee is going to be the least of your expenses by the time you're at a plane fare. And I do want you to stay the night, Friday night, because we're going to go out for dinner in little groups as well to spark ideas and have a chat and all that kind of thing. But what I'm envisaging is that a group of smart, engaged, interesting people just like you come together in a room. We're going to have thought-provoking and useful and practical stuff delivered from the front of the room, and there will be plenty of time to chat to other people, let the ideas simmer, share ideas with each other. Notice that ideas appear in the space between people having conversations, and the goal is that we catalyze something which will turn into, I hope, something really exciting and interesting and amazing next year. So if that sounds like fun, Friday the 8th of December, $250, a day of your time plus an evening having dinner with wonderful peeps. Totally love to see you there. You're all invited. There's a link in the chat box. You can just click on that, stick in your credit card details, lock in your place. It'll be somewhere between the CBD and Fitzroy, but I'm still working that out. Cool. Has this been helpful? Are you going to go away with one project or one productivity idea or one piece of your profile that you're a little bit more inspired by now, and you're going to turn that into something? Yes, absolutely. Correct answer, Anna. Very glad to hear it. If you want to share any of them with me, cole@colefink.com. Just send me an email. I'd love to see it, be inspired by it, offer you any feedback if that's what you want. Thank you, everyone, for coming along. Wonderful to see you. I hope to see you in person in Melbourne if that's at all feasible. And there's another session next week that you're welcome to come along to. You can always check them out at coldfink.com/solopreneurs is the registration links. Thanks, peeps. I'll see you again soon. Have a great day.